We now turn to our awards portion of this evening's program. We will begin with the awards named for the late Richard Dick Cornell. Dick, as I said before, coined the term independent sector to refer to the crucial space between government and business, and was long one of America's leading public intellectuals. Over the years that we have presented the awards we're featuring this evening, doing so has had a lot of collateral benefits. I was talking to one of last year's awardees, Luma Mufflin of the Fuji's Family Schools. She was fortunate enough to be asked to do a TED Talk. She's branching to 2 other cities as a result. Things are really moving, and partly she credits the context that she made at this dinner. That is one of the points of what we've always tried to do with this award. If you look at your program, you'll see how many of the more than 50 awards made since 2001 have led to growth and widespread influence. Audience members have come forward, and I'm not putting any pressure on anybody, and written checks on the spot. And worthy supporters such as Nick O'Neill have taken active roles, ongoing roles, in helping to support and guide award winners. We're joined tonight by an impressive number of past prize winners, really a gallery of impressive idealistic entrepreneurs. I'm going to introduce them. Please hold your applause until after I introduce all of them, but I hope they'll stand. From Santa Fe, New Mexico, Glennis Carl of the Coming Home Connection. From Jersey City, New Jersey, of Rising Tide Capital, Alpha Demolash and Alex Forrester. I hope they're here. From Harlem, New York, Mark Goldsmith of Getting Out and Staying Out. Also from Harlem, around the corner from Mark, Vi Higginson of Gospel for Teens, the Mama Foundation for the Arts. I can't see anybody, so if you're standing, I hope. I hope Max Kenner is here from Annandale-on-Hudson, the Bard Prison Initiative. Luma Muffla of Fuji. There's Max. Thank you, Max. Yeah, I'll applaud. Luma Muffla of Fuji's Family, who I just mentioned. Luma. There she is, over there, behind Max. From Dallas, Texas, they really come from everywhere. Reed Porter of Advocates for Community Transformation. And from the Bronx, Daniel Reingold of the Hebrew Home at Riverdale Elder Abuse Prevention Program. From Somerset, New Jersey, Eloise Samuels of the New Jersey Orators. And finally, from right here in New York, representing the National Squash and Education Alliance, AKA Squash Busters, Tim Wyant. Please join me in thanking all of them. And I really do urge you to take your programs home and read up on the great work that they're doing. Now, for this year's awards. We look first across the Hudson River to Jersey City, where even it has revived economically, there are many young people in danger of being left behind. That's where our first winner comes in. New City Kids addresses the problem of intergenerational poverty by using a vastly underutilized resource, teenagers from their own community. It runs programs for children in the community every day, 240 days a year, I'm told. Sports, drama, music. But instead of using volunteers or adults, they hire teenagers to run all their programs, taking those kids off the street and helping mold their character and the character of the younger children. The teens are put through a boot camp-style training regimen and then deployed as leaders for those 240 days a year. It's not a small commitment. Over the last 9 years, 100% of those teens have not only graduated high school, 90% have graduated college or are still in college. A lot of programs get kids started on college. Graduation is the key. And the program is growing. Today there are 5 sites of New City Kids with 160 paid teens serving 300 younger children. Trevor Rubing and his wife Linda started these programs in Jersey City, but they're now expanded to Paterson, New Jersey, and Grand Rapids, Michigan, where Trevor and Linda make their home. Please welcome from Grand Rapids, Michigan, via Jersey City, nominated by Nicholas Walterstoff of Yale University, the co-founders of New City Kids, Trevor and Linda Rubin.
Well, she didn't know she was going to get invited up here, so I prepared remarks. We feel very honored and privileged to be a part of this gathering and to receive this award. And I want to thank the Manhattan Institute for the great work you do in seeking out ideas that can change our world. So I was going to say I have a confession to make that I'm not the founder. I'm the co-founder with my wife. And so together we launched New City Kids 23 years ago, and we walked the neighborhoods of Jersey City, and we found these amazing agents of change right in the community, which are the teenagers. And I have to admit, honestly, that we failed often, but ultimately discovered a model for breaking the cycle of poverty that is really unique, and it's working. So what do? Well, I want you to just imagine and remember back to summer camp, if you have an experience or memory of being at summer camp. And think of that time where you would go to this place, and there's this community of people who are having fun, and they're engaging, and they care about each other, and they're singing these songs, and they're doing these boundary-stretching events, and earning merit badges, and being called on to lead things and excel. And then there's these late-night discussions about the meaning of life that change your life forever. Now, imagine doing that, but not in the country, but in the heart of some of the most impoverished neighborhoods in urban America. And imagine that instead of college kids leading it, it's the teenagers from the community who are paid staff. And imagine that these teenagers have a goal of eradicating poverty by breaking the cycle of poverty through the power of God's love to change lives, and especially through this component of college completion. And you have to replace the acoustic guitars and campfires with rock bands. Okay, he said sports, but it's mainly rock bands with some of the best musicians in the world leading them. And this difference also. Instead of 1 or 2 weeks a year, this boot camp is 45 weeks every single year. So people ask us, doesn't that tire you out? And the truth is, it inspires us, it invigorates us. We get to be with these kids who make us feel alive and keep us moving and keep us dancing. And we have the honor of being in their lives through what are some of the most difficult, traumatic times of kids' lives sometimes, where they're experiencing homelessness or domestic violence or the divorce of their parents. And instead of these things becoming dead ends for them, they become sort of part of the resume of resilience that these young people have as they forge a path ahead for the next generation coming up. So thank you so much for the chance to share and for this award.
Don't go away.
All right.
Next, we turn to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Milwaukee zip code 53206 holds an unenviable designation. A greater percentage of its population has been incarcerated than that of any other in the United States. It's far from unique in the city, though. What's more, many of those who return from prison come to neighborhoods on the city's north side which are physically and one might say spiritually dilapidated. It's that sort of situation that can seem impervious to improvement. That, however, is not the sort of sentiment that occurs to Nick Ringer, who leads an institution addressing the area's ills, both human and physical. The community warehouse formula might seem simple, but it's original and powerful. Its warehouse, a recycled one-time tannery building on the Menominee River, is filled with top-quality, donated construction materials, from lumber to drywall, and it's staffed by ex-offenders, there to find both employment and new purpose. As Nick likes to put it, we look at assets, products, and people that others don't see. That means that surplus construction materials that used to take up space in landfills are now in the hands of small neighborhood contractors, and they become valued tools for improving homes. And the background challenged individuals who unload, sort, and sell at below retail prices all those materials, learn the habits and personal responsibility that comes with work. In the process, Community Warehouse helps rebuild homes and rebuild lives, taking in $100,000 in revenue every month. This is not a small business. Please welcome Nick Ringer, the man who has led it both to financial sustainability and community impact, nominated by Jason Riley of the Manhattan Institute and of the Wall Street Journal, the leader of the Community Warehouse from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Nick Ringer.
Thank you very much. I'd first like to thank God for the opportunities He's given us to work in Milwaukee and the opportunities He gives us to serve day in and day out. Thanks to Jason. I appreciate the nomination. My board of directors, some are here, who have given me enormous help in the success. I count on them almost daily in the work. Dedicated staff, Jacob, wave your hand. He's an anchor. My wife of 34 years, who's been behind me, beside me, pushing and helping every step of the way. Manhattan Institute, thank you. I'm going to just tell one story, and then I'll get off and get moving here. This week, one of my guys, Sylvester, who is also known as Seal to Deal, been with us about 9 months, sauntered into my office, unannounced and uninvited, and promptly grabbed a great big handful of my candies out of my candy bowl. What's up? He informed me that he needed some sugar. I'm like, so you come in here and help yourself, right? And so we have this nice banter. He's been on my last nerve every other day or so for 9 months. We're having a great time. But I'm seeing a change of mind in this young man in a way that I hadn't seen. And I said, let me tell you something. Let me teach you something. I said, you have a cell phone? And he says, yeah. And he says, you guys have cell phones, right? Why don't you touch it? It feels good, right? I said, I learned something about life from my cell phone this week. I got my wife, after 6 months of helping me, decided to get a new cell phone. So I buy this cell phone, some Moto something or other. And I realize as I look at it that it has 2 cameras, right? You guys all know that. It has 2 cameras. It's got a camera out here and a camera back here. And I realize that this camera on this front side takes 5 megapixel pictures. I'm like, and that's pretty cool, right, Sylvester? I call him Seal. He says, yeah. And I said, but you know the camera on this side? That camera takes 12 megapixel pictures. Why do you suppose? And he looked at me like kind of cocked his head. And I said, because it's designed for me to take pictures of me, really, right? I said, you're living in a 12 megapixel world when everybody around you is a 5 megapixel person. If you come in here and take up all the candy, it's all about you. I said, am I a 5 megapixel person to you? Or together are we 12s? And he sat down, and you could just see it washing over you, realizing that life isn't all about him. And together we're going to help each other. It says, if your wife or your kids or your neighbors are 5 megapixel people, you're going to treat them in a different way, and it doesn't work in life, and it won't work for you. And he said the words that I like to hear, I get you. I get you. Put about 2 candies back and bolted out the door. So, thank you very much.
Stay where you are. Go back right there. Wow. Our next award winner is built on the knowledge that gaining admission to one of the small number of selective public high schools in New York City is no mean feat. And in recent years, the fact that small numbers, very small numbers, of African American and Hispanic students, 21 black students, 83 Hispanic students out of 3,350 total, have been admitted to schools such as Stuyvesant High School, the Bronx High School of Science, Brooklyn Tech. Our next Cornell Prize winner has devoted himself to lifting those numbers, not by advocating for any kind of changed admission standards. Instead, the bridge to enter advanced mathematics begins with 6th and 7th grade students in 35 of New York's middle schools with the most disadvantaged students, identifying those with exceptional raw ability to succeed in high-level mathematics. And let me emphasize, high-level mathematics. The stakes are high for such students. They are at risk of being funneled to one of the 40% of New York high schools which offer no math beyond Algebra 2. That's no math. It's not easy to get into the Bridge to Enter Advanced Mathematics, BEAM. Students must not only show that they can do tough problems, they have to answer very unusual questions, such as, what kind of problems are your favorites and why? For those who do get in, intense summer tutoring programs, along with ongoing programs during the school year, help draw them into what founder Daniel Zarapol, himself a mathematics graduate of MIT, he had other options, people, calls the community of mathematicians. He calls it falling in love with math. The results have been life-changing. Almost half of BEAM's 2016 students, the year 2016, were admitted to New York's highly selective high schools, among the few African American and Hispanic students to gain that admission. They include 3 BEAM students admitted to Stuyvesant, 2 to Bronx Science, 10 to Brooklyn Tech, all schools where African Americans and Hispanics are underrepresented. Many others are already bound, post-BEAM, for demanding college math programs at schools including Barnard, Bard, Colby, Ithaca, Lehigh, Northeastern, NYU, Rochester, Wesleyan, some with help from scholarships which BEAM arranges in partnership with the Jack Kent Cooke Foundation. On the near horizon, BEAM Los Angeles. Please join me in welcoming and congratulating, along with, I think, some of the Beamers, is that the right word? Yeah. Okay. Daniel Zarapol.
So thank you, Howard, and thank you to everyone at the Manhattan Institute for organizing this event and giving us this opportunity and this award. Our BEAM students here are not just here to look fabulous, although they do. I will introduce them all in a moment. What I'd like to do first, though, is to ask you to do a little thought experiment. Think of a professional athlete that you know, and ask yourself, whoever you're thinking of, it might be Serena Williams, it might be LeBron James, it might be someone else, anyone. Did that person get there because they did well in their high school gym class? Think about a professional musician whom you admire. It might be Beyonce, it might be some YouTube musician who, gets a few 100,000 or a few million hits on their videos. For me, it's Yo-Yo Ma. Did they get there because of their music class? No. These are people who loved what they did. They went beyond what was just given to them, what's just given to everyone, and they said, I want more of this. I want to pursue more of it. I want to see more of it. I want to experience more of it. Well, for professional scientists, mathematicians, engineers, programmers, they did the same thing. Howard mentioned that I went to MIT, and that was my experience growing up with summer programs and independent research and programming on my own and all kinds of different projects and reading. So if we want students to have the same opportunities for success, doing high-level math and science work when they get to college, they have to have the same access to programs, the same access to advanced study as more affluent students. And that's the goal of BEAM. to begin with enrichment programs for students in the summers after 6th and 7th grade, and then to continue and support them accessing all of these other programs and high schools and opportunities all the way up through their college admission. So the reason that these BEAM students are here is because I would like to invite you after the session to come and meet them, because I think actually talking to our students is the best way to understand our program. I wasn't using the word fabulous flippantly. So Malachi is a senior at Brooklyn Tech. Isabella is a sophomore at Manhattan Center for Science and Mathematics. Vielka is also a senior at Brooklyn Tech. And Anna is a freshman at Barnard College. And they can tell you about their experience with the program. They can tell you about how early exposure to advanced mathematics helped them get on the track that they are now. And they can tell you about the math that they've studied, and depending on how much you like math, it might make your head spin. But maybe their joy will be infectious. Thank you very much.
Next stop, New Orleans, Louisiana. It's an understatement to say that Kelly Orions is an unlikely candidate to have built what she calls a business incubator for those leaving the infamous Angola prison farm in Louisiana. She's a Colorado native who attended law school in California and only found her way to New Orleans in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. It was then that she began to volunteer her services at Citizens for Second Chances, a project to assist juvenile offenders serving life terms in Angola, which still operates to this day very much as an antebellum plantation with prison labor. Her focus at the time was on extreme sentencing reform, reducing sentences. Over time, she was drawn toward the goal of effecting change in a real way. Those are her words. Rather than focusing on public policy, she focused on individual change. I think all of our award winners are in that game. For her, that meant helping to create avenues for those fortunate enough to be released from Angola to avoid returning to criminal life. She found a sympathetic partner, an experimental New Orleans reentry court, willing to turn to her to help the minority of Angola inmates not serving life sentences. Kelly's focus, helping those she calls FIPS, formerly incarcerated persons, start and expand their own businesses. Today, that's not just a dream, it's reality, and many of those business owners are with her at that table. For the owners of the All-Pro Electrical and Plumbing Maintenance Company, the Real Gentleman's Barbershop, the Flight Night Car Tinting Service, all have benefited from legal help to incorporate small startup loans, getting occupational licenses. We know those can be very serious barriers, all on a shoestring budget of not much more than $200,000 a year in a small building in the shadow of the New Orleans Criminal Court. As a staff member at that court told me about Kelly, never met anybody like her. She's the definition of an unsung hero. The men you meet through the business incubator have literally had their lives transformed because of her relentless help. Ladies and gentlemen, from New Orleans, Louisiana, nominated by Cheryl Dorsey of the Echoing Green Foundation, the founder of Rising Foundations, and some of her business incubatees, Kelly Orions.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Howard. Thank you so much. I have to tell you, being about 1,000 miles away from my adopted home in a room full of most folks I've never met before, being able to talk to about our work is absolutely surreal and without a doubt a highlight of my life. Tonight has been absolutely lovely. The spread, the company, everything has just been beautiful. And unfortunately, throughout the course of it, I started to realize that we were terrible hosts to Howard when we were in New Orleans. And that's doubly unfortunate considering that as, Southerners, adopted Southerners, we kind of pride ourselves in hospitality. And instead of delicious food and music, we took Howard to the real New Orleans. The side of New Orleans that your Airbnb host or the Visitors Bureau is definitely not going to tell you about. At one point during his visit, we actually were on a rather infamous block in Central City, New Orleans, which is currently home to at least 8% of the incarcerated population in New Orleans. This is one of those blocks that folks born and raised in New Orleans refuse to even drive through. And so I got to give it to Howard that when we went there, not only did he get out of the car, I turned my back for just a second, and he was making friends with some local entrepreneurs, if you will. Because on a serious note, yes. Yes. On a serious note, this block is one, and it's a block where we actually own a home that we are in the process of renovating, and it's a block where heroin is actually still openly used and sold on the street. It's a block that you could witness a police chase, you could witness a shooting. Actually, this evening, as we were enjoying dinner, we got word that a friend of our organization, a customer of one of our small businesses, was actually murdered a couple blocks from that house. And I think that is why, in many people's opinion, it's a block that's beyond repair, and the people who occupy it are just beyond redemption. So naturally, that is where we've chosen to expand our operations. A year ago, we made the decision to take the task of renovating a 160-year-old home right in the middle of that block to create additional space for our transitional housing and reentry programs, as well as commercial space for our small business owners to be able to pursue their entrepreneurship. It's because of the reputation of this block that it's where we knew we absolutely had to be. And clearly, by being here tonight, Howard and his colleagues at the Manhattan Institute are either as crazy as we are, or they really get what we're trying to do and what we're about. Because at Rising Foundations, that's what we do. We're attempting to stop the cycle of mass incarceration that has led us to having the highest per capita population of incarcerated people in the country, and we're attempting to stop the cycle of violence and the cycle of poverty that results from this. We're here for the folks that society has written off. We're here to, instead of judging formerly incarcerated people, instead of calling the cops on people that use and sell drugs, we walk up to them directly and we ask, what's going on? What can we do to help you help yourself? How can we share what we have? And it's not much, but we certainly have more than a lot of people we know, to allow someone to find some independence and some sustainability outside of the illicit economy. It's certainly not simple, but it's working. And so before I close this evening, I had to share this opportunity with my friends and colleagues who are on the stage with me here tonight, and I want to introduce them to you, and I hope that you'll join me in applauding them when I'm done, because without them, I would absolutely just be another New Orleans transplant with a lot of passion and a law license and a problem that had been identified but would have no legs to go out and solve it, because with the exception of myself, every single person that works with Rising Foundations has been through what our clients face. So Derek Parikh is a certified optician who, while he was a prisoner at the Louisiana State Penitentiary at Angola, his job was to make eyeglasses for every prisoner in the state. When he came home, he is now a business owner. He owns Custom Optical New Orleans. He's one of our trained peer mentors, and he also coordinates our small business incubator program. Henry Bias is co-owner of All Pro Maintenance Services, and he is also one of our peer mentors. And I think it's fair to say that Henry actually has one of our most challenging caseloads, because he works with quite a few of our clients who have long-term substance abuse issues. And in between being a father of 3 and a small business owner and a peer mentor, he still finds the time to never miss a call from one of our folks, because we know that no matter how much progress we make, something small can turn into something major that disrupts someone's path to stay out of prison. So thank you, Henry. Nutrell Brown is co-owner of All Pro Maintenance Services with Henry. And Nutrell was actually one of the first people that I approached about small business incubation. And today, he actually is his ongoing battle with the parish of Jefferson Parish and the sheriff's office to deal with 10-year-old traffic tickets that have literally quadrupled and more to a state of $60 traffic tickets that are now worth close to $10,000. He was the inspiration to start a communal loan fund that allows people to overcome those barriers. Thank you, Michelle. Daniel Tapia spent 12 years in prison for a crime that he did not commit. Because of his wrongful arrest and wrongful incarceration, he actually survived Hurricane Katrina and the catastrophic flooding of New Orleans from inside Orleans Parish Prison. He, despite this incredible struggle in pursuing the appeals that ultimately led to his release, not even a day went by after he got out of prison, not even 2 years ago. Daniel's only been home for 2 years, and every single day he has spent his time helping the people he grew up with transition home, including the other day when he had to put me on hold while literally carrying a friend of his that he grew up with up a flight of stairs because he was paralyzed from the waist down from being shot. And it was not a wheelchair accessible building. That is absolutely not Daniel's job description, but it is absolutely his character. Daniel is actually how I came to meet Terrell Scott, who is the owner of Flight Night Window Tinting and actually my first ever legal client. He was actually with me the day after I found out I failed the bar for the first time. Thank you. It was a tough day for all of us. I eventually passed, or like the record, I'm a licensed attorney. Thank you. Yes, thank you. And he was the first person that I attempted to get a driver's license reinstated. I tell you, I had no idea I would become as passionate or as opinionated as I am about the Department of Motor Vehicles, but I am. He was with me the day that we actually occupied and refused to leave the Office of Motor Vehicles until they would finally agree to reform their policies to allow people coming home from prison to get their licenses. And we won. And the day that Terrell got his 5-year full Class E driver's license is still, without a doubt, my favorite memory as a licensed attorney. At 34 years old, Doug DeLosa was wrongfully convicted of murder and spent 14 years in prison. He personally appealed his case. He was an inmate lawyer, and he personally handled his own appeals from the Louisiana State Penitentiary at Angola, and he won. But despite the fact that he had extensive employment history, was self-educated with the law, he was denied jobs by thousands of employers when he came home. When we finally were able to hire Doug, he spent every day of the last 3 years that we've been fully operational helping other exonerees transition home from prison, literally rebuilding someone's house with his own 2 hands and funds that he helped raise to make that happen. Last, but certainly not least, is the youngest member of our crew, Alvon Jones. He is the owner of Detail Dat Mobile Car Detailing and International Hauling, and as a teenager in Orleans Parish Prison, actually had the courage to challenge our fairly infamous sheriff to change the way that we treat kids in prison. And because AJ, we call him AJ, was willing to take that step, and it was a very brave step to challenge the sheriff while you're still incarcerated, he has literally saved lives. Thank you. So every year in Louisiana, 15,000 people are released from prison, and within 5 years, over half of them are going to return. But thanks to this team of fathers and business owners and mentors, we're putting a stop to that. So on behalf of my team and the over 170 clients that we serve, thank you so much for acknowledging what we do and for acknowledging the lives of people that we serve. And just thank you. Thank you so much.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, we turn to our evening's grand prize, the William E. Simon Prize for lifetime achievement in social entrepreneurship. We're honored to have with us tonight several previous winners of this $100,000 prize, and I'd like each of them to stand as I recognize you. Norman Atkins of the Relay Graduate School of Education, finding new ways to train a new generation of effective teachers. Jeffrey Canada, founder and president of the Harlem Children's Zone. I don't have to tell you what that is, do I? But I'll just say his work has made clear that privately supported original ideas can do what government alone cannot do in advancing the prospects of young African Americans. Robert Flanagan, representing his late father, Peter Flanagan, founder of the Student Sponsor Partnership Scholarship and Mentoring Program for low-income students, and continuing his father's work in his own Education LLC. Robert, where are you? George McDonald, whose Doe Fund Ready, Willing, and Able program participants you see all over Midtown Manhattan cleaning the streets and changing their lives. He's shown that the best way to help the homeless rebuild their lives is through a job. George McDonald. And finally, from Boston, the founder of the 10-Point Coalition, dealing day to day with reducing violence in his community and in communities around the country, the Reverend Eugene Rivers. Shortly, we will hear the late New York City Police Detective Stephen McDonald. We will honor the late New York City Police. We will hear from him too, believe it or not. The New York City Police Detective Stephen McDonald, and we'll hear from his wife, Patty Ann. Before we do, though, we'd like, on the occasion of this, the presentation of the final William E. Simon Prize, to look back on the life of its namesake, Bill Simon, and on the meaning of the prize. With the help of filmmaker Jim Epstein, we present this video.
This year's winners of the William E. Simon Prize, Richard Gilder and Louis Lehrman.
Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Lamb.
Norman Atkins.
Jeffrey Canada.
God bless you, Father Tim. We want you to be the recipient of the William E. Simon Lifetime Achievement Award.
Winning really serious awards, that means something.
Since its inception in 2001, there have been 19 winners of the William E. Simon Prize for Lifetime Achievement in Social Entrepreneurship. The $100,000 award has been a living legacy of its namesake, Bill Simon. Born in the modest mill town of Paterson, New Jersey, Bill Simon enlisted in the U.S. Army. He then moved to New York City to begin a storied career in business. He was tapped to serve as the nation's first energy czar and then as U.S. Treasury Secretary.
Anyone who first met Bill was impressed with his brain. Anyone who knew Bill was moved by his heart.
He was a great family guy, a great dad, and he had a heart of gold. But it was always with a sense of discipline.
He was someone whose life embodied his unabashed belief in free market capitalism and good government. But Bill Simon wisely understood as well that America also relies on its civil society and on those who see new social needs and challenges but take it upon themselves to do something about them.
I began to realize with my success came a responsibility.
The idea that we must empower people to help themselves was the basis for my dad's philanthropic efforts.
These values have lived on through the William E. Simon Foundation and through its recognition with the William E. Simon Prize of a roster of daring and visionary social entrepreneurs whose success has been predicated on private philanthropy.
Social entrepreneurship is the ability to take a problem that exists in society and address it within the confines of our institutional structure.
I'm sending one of the words so came up and popped out of the egg and came in a very hungry caterpillar.
If you do this model with public dollars solely, it will fail. It will fail. The level of accountability we have to have when we take private dollars is what's going to drive us to continually improve our programs.
Other winners include Eunice Kennedy Shriver, founder of the Special Olympics, David Levin and Michael Feinberg, co-founders of the KIPP Charter School Network for the Disadvantaged, Daniel Biederman, founder of the Bryant Park Corporation, so crucial to New York City's revival, George McDonald, founder of the Doe Fund, a pioneer in helping the homeless, and Sal Khan, education visionary and founder of Khan Academy.
Obviously, God had a design for me.
Even as the Simon Foundation fulfills its founder's wish to move toward a sunset, Bill Simon's legacy, both through the prize named for him and the message it sends, lives on.
Just like to note that Dan Biederman was here earlier and had to leave for a personal family reason. And we've just been joined by another Simon Prize winner, the founder or the big mover behind TED Talks, Chris Anderson. Chris, where are you? We like to think this is kind of like The Voice, and our guys are auditioning, so keep them in mind, Chris. Bill Simon stands squarely in the tradition of great American philanthropists such as Benjamin Franklin, who left a fortune to help the disadvantaged but set a time limit on its use. Now, to reflect on the legacy of his father and representing the Simon family, we turn to Bill Simon, Jr. It's tempting to introduce Bill by recognizing that for which he's best known publicly: his success as an investor in collaboration with his brother Peter, his campaign as the Republican candidate for governor of California, his tenure as an assistant U.S. attorney here in New York. That would overlook the fact that Bill has continued in the philanthropic footsteps of his father, founding and supporting the Los Angeles-based Sound Body, Sound Mind program, helping to provide phys ed and equipment to more than 100,000 school children. Parish Catalyst, encouraging and assisting Catholic church leaders across the country to provide testing grounds for new approaches to ministry. Did I mention he teaches in the economics department and the law school at UCLA? Whew. Please join me in representing the Simon family, Bill Simon.
Thank you, Howard. That was terrific. And this evening has been yet another remarkably inspiring evening and already. And congratulations to all the Cornell winners. Let's give them another round of applause. I am greatly honored, particularly on this final occasion, to stand up here on behalf of our family and our foundation. I'd like all my family members to stand up, if I could, my sibs and... And I know you've already heard a lot about Dad. I want to talk just a little bit about him and our family, as well as to thank Patty Ann and Connor McDonald for accepting, on Stephen's behalf, this 2017 prize for the Lifetime Achievement in Social Entrepreneurship. Now, we started this prize in 2001, basically to remember our father who had passed away the year before, as a way to celebrate his rich life, but also the joy that he always took in identifying and supporting social entrepreneurs as they tackled our nation's problems.
This passion was natural for Dad because Dad always rooted for the underdog. Maybe it was because he himself was once upon a time an underdog. Despite all his successes that you've heard about tonight, Dad struggled in his early years. He lost his mother when he was 8 years old. He was asked not to return to several schools, much to his father's surprise. His poor eyesight prevented him from being successful in the military. And perhaps my favorite, Dad's future father-in-law warned his daughter, our mother, that she should not go out with Bill Simon because he would never make anything of himself. As you might imagine, Dad never forgot that one. But none of those things deterred him. He sat for 3 days in a securities firm on Wall Street waiting to see if they would give him a job. And they finally did. And that's what launched his legendary career on Wall Street. He and Mom had 7 surviving children. 4 of us are here tonight. They stood up earlier, but let me just say, my brother Pete, his lovely wife Janet, my terrific sisters, Amy, Lee, and Mary. We all knew, and Dad knew, that we relied on him to provide for us. But while he was away at the office or traveling outside the country, it was Mom who kept the 7 of us in line, for the most part. And through her loving guidance, she helped both her husband and children reach their potential. As the saying goes, behind or maybe alongside every great man is an even greater woman. No truer words were ever spoken about our mother, Carol Simon. Dad and Mom were social entrepreneurs to their core, whether it was supporting schools, other local initiatives, or organizations on both a national and international scale. Who could have predicted that a young couple in 1951 from 2 small neighboring towns on the New Jersey shore would live the lives that they ended up living? I encourage you to read the booklets that set forth, Mom and Dad's accomplishments, particularly Dad's. With Mom and Dad as guides, we learned early on the importance of giving back. For example, I recall vividly spending Christmas days at Covenant House here in New York City, feeding homeless teens. That was the way it was in the Simon household. Dad has helped to found, as you heard tonight, so many different things. I want to mention a couple. Covenant House, the U.S. Olympic Foundation, the Philanthropy Roundtable, and the Simon School of Business at the University of Rochester. You've heard about many of his major roles in public life: Secretary of Treasury, Energy Czar, the head of the John M. Olin Foundation, and the U.S. Olympic Committee. But one thing that is not so well known about Dad is that not only rooting for an underdog, but he had the foresight to know that he wanted his family, all of us, to continue his passion for that underdog, his passion for giving back, long after he was gone. He established the William E. Simon Foundation as an instrument to carry out this vision of helping people to help themselves. America, after all, is a land of opportunity. Put people on a path to opportunity, and the rest will take care of itself, just like it did for Mom and Dad. My siblings and I have done our best to be wise investors in innovative and effective programs as a way to faithfully chart and carry on Dad's entrepreneurial vision. As part of our roles as trustees, we were required to do community service every year, even to this day. And all of my siblings have done that, and much, much more. We've enjoyed working together in a common cause while sharing many laughs and good-natured fun along the way. Dad's foundation has made our already tight-knit family even stronger, just as Mom and Dad would have hoped. And we're proud of the Simon Prize as a highlight of their entrepreneurial legacy. Dad's belief in self-reliance is reflected in all the winners of the Simon Prize, indeed in all the winners that you've seen of the Cornell Prize here tonight. These extraordinary people all saw social problems and knew it was not the government, but rather private citizens who needed to design solutions. It was almost as if Dad was fond of quoting Andrew Carnegie, a hand up as opposed to a handout. And the Simon Prize for Lifetime Achievement recognizes and celebrates those successful entrepreneurs whose programs do just that. Their organizations, as Howard has mentioned, have revolutionized fields of K through 12 education, gang violence, prisoner reentry, mentoring, special needs services, public-private space, and the preservation and promotion of the right of Americans to have access to ideas. We're thrilled, as you've heard tonight, to have many of our past winners with us. Again, I refer you to the booklet. There's some amazing stories. Now, as Howard's mentioned, tonight's a little bittersweet for us, as it's the last event of this scale to celebrate the Simon Prize. We have built a strong cohort of Simon Prize winners, and their collective impact on our country, I am sure, is making Mom and Dad proud as we speak. According to Dad's wish, the foundation will close in just a couple of years, and we, along with our terrific partners, the Manhattan Institute, thought this would be an appropriate time to bring this aspect of the program to a close. With the time we have left with the foundation, we will continue to look to have the prize be in a little bit more modest of a setting, but to continue the spirit of the prize. So, on this swan song occasion, I want to take a moment to acknowledge several people. First, the important partnership with the Manhattan Institute. Without Larry Mohn, Howard Uzak, who you have heard from tonight, and Carolyn Gorman, I don't know where we'd be. I think they deserve a round of applause for everything they've done. I also want to thank the events team. You know, you put on an event like this with a couple of hundred people, there's a lot of people behind it. And let's give them a round of applause. I want to also acknowledge the president of our foundation, senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute, and our dearest friend, Jim Pearson. I'd also like to mention another board member, Dan Mosley, who's been our family counsel for over 30 years. Jim and Dan, they have given us so much good advice. We're also grateful to our foundation staff, Sarah, Janice, Amy, and Karen. And past staff members, Sheila, Jen, and Liz. We know that all of you have created and helped with this Simon Prize. My siblings and I have a number of children that are here with us tonight. As usual, too many to mention. There's 7 of us, and we've had, I think, 26, if I get the numbers correct. We're grateful that the next generation has had the opportunity to understand the influence that their grandpa still wields in this great country of ours. Grandpa and Grandma were proud of their grandchildren, and so we challenge you, grandkids, to continue this legacy in all you do. My friendships with my siblings mean the world to me. Be proud to carry on your grandparents' goodwill and love of family into the next generation. In a moment, Howard will come back up to share more about the winner of this year's William E. Simon Prize for Lifetime Achievement in Social Entrepreneurship, Detective Stephen McDonald. But I might say briefly a few words. Stephen is different from our other winners in that he did not start a formal organization. Instead, he channeled the unique difficulties of his life into a positive message that made its mission to spread that message of forgiveness and love to people all across the world. He positively impacted the lives of thousands of people, ranging from dignitaries all the way down to school children in all different kinds of schools all across this country. Dad and Stephen share a sincere Catholic faith, a fierce patriotic spirit, and the motivation to be self-reliant and do for others despite their own challenges. Connor, losing my father was one of the toughest things I ever experienced. I hope that tonight will allow you to see that while you will never stop missing your dad, the impact and joy of your dad's life will thrive for many years to come. And Patty Ann, we are honored to link the McDonald and Simon families together through this prize and to remember and thank Stephen for his extraordinary life. This William E. Simon Prize is meant to inspire others, and the extraordinary accomplishments of the winners not only inspire, but also highlight the pleasure of helping our fellow citizens. It has been our privilege to oversee this prize in memory of our dad and to welcome the late Stephen McDonald into this elite group tonight. Thank you very much.
Take your remarks. Here you go. All right. Thank you so much, Bill. As Bill mentioned, the winner of this year's Simon Prize is with us only in spirit. New York Police Detective Stephen McDonald died this past January after having spent 3 decades in a wheelchair in the wake of his being shot while on duty in Central Park in 1986. During those long years, he made a courageous and impactful decision not to succumb to bitterness and hatred. Instead, understanding the power of his personal example, he set out on a lifetime mission of mercy and forgiveness, including forgiveness for his teenage assailant. He spoke at schools, community gatherings in New York, in Washington, in Northern Ireland, and he touched thousands of lives. As the principal of a school in Brooklyn put it in a letter sent to Stephen McDonald, it's difficult to express adequately our thanks and gratitude for coming to our school in Williamsburg to show children the real meaning of love, forgiveness, and concern for others. Today will live on in the hearts and minds of those in attendance. You made them stop, reflect, and think about their values and ideals, how they treat others, and how they expect to be treated in kind. Before we hear from Patty McDonald, who will accept the prize on behalf of her late husband, let us hear ourselves from New York Police Detective Stephen McDonald speaking to that school in Brooklyn.
Very often we respond to the violence in our world, this world, the larger world, with more violence. Christoph could tell you his trips to the Middle East and Central America and other tortured corners, communities of the world. People respond to violence with more violence than what we're asking. Is that you consider forgiving those who hurt you or hurt those you love, instead of responding to that violence with more violence. You might forgive, and forgiveness is a beautiful expression of love that we have for ourselves and each other, That's why we were made. That's why we're here on earth is. There's to love, we could do a lot of things. With our lives, we could be police officers, troopers, sheriffs, principals, superintendents, adults, kids. We're called to do many things with our lives, but nothing more important than to love. And it's up to you to define what love is. Certainly it's not cheap love that Hollywood throws at us all the time. I mean, if I was angry or bitter, if I had any hostile feelings for that young teenager who shot me, I needed to free myself of those very difficult emotions, difficult feelings, so that I would be free to love my wife and our child, and all of you, all those I would come to know and echo into. That's the way it worked out. It was that quick, and I've never thought twice about it. Did I make a mistake? I don't believe so. I was free to love and free to move on with my life. I want to be at peace. I want to be happy while I'm here amongst all of you and with my family, and someday I know that I'll die and I go to heaven. And it's important that I forgive that young man so that I can go to heaven and be with God.
Ladies and gentlemen, Patty Ann McDonald. And Connor McDonald.
I just mentioned to Howard that I had never seen that video. So to hear him say those words, especially at the, I've heard him say those words, to me, but to see that video of him speaking to all those children, that was beautiful. Thank you. I also want to congratulate all the Cornell winners. I feel very humbled to be in all of your presence. Congratulations. When Howard called me about this incredible honor, I was truly speechless. And that doesn't happen to me, right, Connor? And a lot of my friends and family can contest to that. Stephen lived out his mission in life quietly. But when I was told about the William E. Simon Prize for Lifetime Achievement in Social Entrepreneurship, Connor and I knew that we had to accept this to keep Stephen's message moving forward and his mission. To be in the same company as the past prize recipients is humbling. To be here with, I hope you don't mind, I'm not saying your last names, Chris, Norman, Jeffrey, Eugene, Dan, Robert, and George. I'm so happy to be here tonight with you, to have Stephen join the ranks of this unique and impressive fraternity. I know that he admired all that you have done to improve his beloved city of New York. And everyone that knew Stephen knew that he loved this city, right? He loved it so much. And for families and young people, all the work that you've done across this nation. Stephen's patriotism was feverish, and being associated with such innovative, motivated, and giving Americans is more than he could ever have asked for. I'd like to thank the Simon family, Bill, Peter, Lee, Mary, Amy. It was wonderful being with all of you this evening. I felt so warm, and you made us feel so welcome tonight. Thank you, and I feel like family already, so thank you. I guess that's what happens when the Irish Catholic clans get together, right? Again, thank you for your very warm welcome of Stephen into your father's legacy. It seems to me as though Mr. Simon and Stephen shared that constant sense of urgency to continually do. Do for family, do for the church, do for the country, do for those forgotten, do for those needing that hand up. Bill, your sentiment about making sure that your dad's passion and life's work continues to live on is exactly what Connor and I have dedicated ourselves to do. Stephen's capacity to love, I doubt, will ever be duplicated. But we will ask all of you here tonight to try. Take it upon yourselves to be grateful for what you have. Forgive those who have wronged you, and love a stranger as your own. I'd like to thank the Manhattan Institute, Howard and Carolyn, for welcoming not just Connor and I, but our family and friends here this evening for this very, very special evening. You have been thoughtful in learning about Stephen and his mission and helping us to spread it to this very, very impressive group here this evening. And I know Connor wants to say a couple of words.
Good evening. I think my father would be blown away with this award tonight. It's pretty remarkable being in this room, especially the Simon family, and what this award is all about. My dad would be blown away. He would be very, very humbled and honored to be here tonight. My dad became a cop in 1984 after serving this great country as a Navy corpsman. And New York City back in the day in 1984 was not the place you really wanted to hang out like it is today. He started on the Lower East Side in one of the worst areas, heroin ring back in the day in Alphabet City, and then he got moved to Central Park. And at the time, Central Park was ravished with crime, and the particular crime that was going on was a bike pattern of gunpoint robberies of young boys who were committing those crimes. And my dad pinpointed the exact time, the exact whereabouts where these crimes would take place. And on that day, July 12th, 1986, he figured out where those young boys were going to be, and he found them in a commission of a crime, a gunpoint robbery crime. And a foot pursuit ensued, and my father was one of the first cops to find the three boys who were committing the gunpoint robberies. My father was by himself, and he didn't think anything of it. It was just young boys, and that was my dad's nature. He believed in helping young people, and he didn't think about taking out his gun or doing any of that, and he wanted to talk to them. And when he realized that one boy had a gun, he went for the gun, and the other boy, when my dad was kneeling, shot my dad in the neck, and then stood over him again and shot him in the head and the arm. Those 3 bullets incapacitated my dad to be in a wheelchair for 30.5 years on a ventilator, and he couldn't do anything on his own. He couldn't go to the bathroom on his own, couldn't take a shower on his own, couldn't eat on his own. But the one thing that he understood laying in that bed in Bellevue and then in Craig Hospital and coming home, and the Catholic Church that he loved so much taught him was to forgive. It's an extremely difficult and hard process, especially when someone violently takes away your livelihood like that. But my dad understood, especially me being born, because my mother was pregnant with me when everything happened, that he had to start living his life in a different path, a path that he didn't want to do, he didn't think he had to do, but what life gave him. And he understood the dignity of life, and he understood that to go on and to make this world a better place, he had to forgive the young boy that shot him and his family. And my dad did. And he went all over the inner cities, probably more than any political activist has ever done in the last 30.5 years in this inner city, was to go in and explain his story and nonviolence and forgiveness. And he went to Northern Ireland, and he went to Bosnia, and he went to Israel, Unfortunately, my father passed away back in January because of respiratory failure. Because those 3 bullets, being on the respirator for so long, his lungs unfortunately stopped working for a minute, and that's all it took. But I challenge everyone here today, because I know it's a tough place, and I know we're in a difficult time right now in our country, but this country is so great, and my dad loved so much. And in my opinion, he was one of the most remarkable and most important people in my generation and probably generations to come, because the violence and the division that we have to overcome. But I know I have some different political viewpoints and different points of views on life, but if you all could go and read my dad's life and his story and what it meant, I think this world would be a better place. So I challenge all of us, and I challenge myself to do a better job. We all have different opinions, we all have different viewpoints, but I think for this great love of our country that we all should come together, and please use my dad's story as an example. Thank you very much. God bless.
Simon family. Before I give this award to Patty Ann, with all the Simon family up here together with us, I want to mention that Connor McDonald is New York Police Department Sergeant Connor McDonald. Patty Ann, please come up.